Our quest to preview every team going to the World Cup one a day until the World Cup actually gets here continues, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling chipper. I'm feeling spry. And I'm here to talk about one of my favorite teams, actually. A team that is perpetually overlooked, but is one of the greatest examples of consistency in international football. And that is the national team of Tunisia. They are the pot 3 team in Group F. And while they are not a scary team in terms of how far they can reach or how high they can fly, they are a tough fucking out. There are very few teams in the world that have a very comfortable game against Tunisia, and I don't really think any of those are in this group, right? Like, your Frances, your Spains would be able to run away from Tunisia a little bit, but this Tunisia team is difficult. They're built different, but they're a little different now than they have been previously. There's a bit of a changing of the guard happening with Tunisia, which could make them better, but it could also make them worse. All right, and as a pot 3 team, they're going to be right on that swing line of getting to the knockouts, which would be something they have never done before. This is a national team that has never made it to the knockouts of the World Cup ever. They made it first in 1978, but starting in 1998, they've managed to make 5 of the next 7 World Cups, which, considering how just unbelievably difficult it is to qualify out of Africa, and considering the considerable lack of star power compared to nations like Ghana and Ivory Coast and Egypt, right, and Algeria and Cameroon, who have very similar World Cup qualification records with Tunisia. It is a really impressive achievement that Tunisia has been able to make the World Cup as consistently as they have. Now, each of the last 2 World Cups, they've been making progress. In 2018, they won a game, and in 2022, in Qatar, they got 4 points. And if things had fallen their way, they actually would have gone to the knockouts, and they got, in my opinion, the most famous win in Tunisian footballing history. They beat France. Now, France didn't have a lot to play for. It was a rotated World Cup team for France. But Tunisia needed a win to potentially go to the knockouts. And then they needed the right result between Australia and Denmark, which didn't happen because Australia got a stunning 1-0 win to go through into the last 16. But they beat France. They literally beat France and drew Denmark. Their loss was Australia. That was, the one game that they probably thought they had the best chance at winning. Right, they set Denmark off on the wrong course. Denmark was a dark horse for this entire tournament. That feels like a very long time ago, but they were. They were unbelievable in European World Cup qualifying going up to this. They were white hot, and Tunisia held them down. Tunisia, in fact, only gave up 1 goal in 3 matches at this tournament, and that's what they fucking do. That is what they do. All you need to know about the way the Tunisian national team has played, this iteration, right? There was that first wave where they made 3 World Cups back to back to back. And then this wave where they've now made 3 World Cups back to back to back again. This wave has been about defense, defense, defense. When you're done with that, it's a big heap and plate of fucking defense. Straight to the dome. They don't let anybody score. We were talking about Ivory Coast in one of our earlier preview videos. If you didn't know, all of these videos are in a playlist if you want to just leave that on while you fall asleep or whatever. The Ivory Coast video talking about an African nation that didn't allow a goal in World Cup qualifying. I'm going to give you one guess how many goals Tunisia allowed in World Cup qualifying. The answer is 0. They scored 22 goals. They conceded none. The biggest challenge in this group was supposed to be Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea ended up getting a 6-point penalty in this group that kind of turned things upside down. If you're wondering, Equatorial Guinea is actually way better than you probably think they are. They've been in the AFCON knockouts multiple times recently. They were pretty bad in this group. Tunisia absolutely owned this group, won 9 games, drew 1, and walked its way straight into another World Cup without allowing a single goal. But recently, after this qualifying was done, cracks started to show because the manager of the team that did this, and some of the key players that did this, that continued this tradition of Tunisia having this unbreakable Carthaginian wall of a defense, the manager's gone. And he's gone because they showed up at the Africa Cup of Nations and once again delivered a very disappointing performance, right? Because they consider themselves, Tunisia, as a team that is in that category. With Algeria, with Morocco, with Egypt, with Nigeria, with, Cameroon, they consider themselves a top echelon national team based off the results they've been able to get in Africa. I mean, they're in the World Cup qualifying in Africa, one of the pot one teams. And so showing up at AFCON, you've got to be a team that has a chance to win it. And they never really looked like that. They beat Uganda. It's a perfectly fine team, right? But a team you should be beating if you're Tunisia. Lost to Nigeria in a match where they were actually down 3-0 at one point, which is like a huge breakdown for Tunisia's whole defense thing. And then they drew Tanzania. Didn't even get the win over Tanzania. Managed to finish second anyways. And they go into the knockout against Mali. And I'm going to make the argument that they were really hard done by this. Tunisia was up a man. They scored in the 88th minute and then conceded a pretty soft penalty in like the 95th minute to give Mali an equalizer. But the issue for Tunisia was against teams that are at least, as good as them. And Mali is a really talented team. You could argue more talented than Tunisia, just player for player. Tunisia just doesn't score. And what they relied on in the past in 2018 and 22 is they had this kind of special guy. Right, national teams sometimes have a special guy. They had one, Wabi Khazri, right? Whatever he was doing in the club level was irrelevant. He was playing in the top French league, by the way. But like, when he showed up for the national team, he was the it guy, right? In certain national teams, you get like that spirit animal. He was just the guy. And Wabi Khazri's not there anymore. And so there's really a lack of. You had one guy, now you got no guys. Right, that fill that talismanic role. I'll propose a couple of guys that could be the guy going forward with this new look Tunisian team. Because after this AFCON, they fired the manager. Even though they'd qualified for the World Cup, it was a really disappointing round of 16 exit. Didn't really look competitive in the league type of performance. Right, Mali got knocked out in the next round, so it's not like they were on some sort of miracle, unstoppable run. Even though I do think Mali's a good team. But this Tunisian team felt it needed to go in another direction. And the manager they hired was this guy named Sabri Lamouche. Now, Sabri Lamouche has managed Nottingham Forest. He's managed Cardiff City. He's managed in Saudi. He's managed some big teams at a pretty high level. And he is brought in by Tunisia to shake things up. And boy, has he. Because the team selection for this nation has really caught some people off guard. Okay, there are players missing. We actually are fortunate enough now that we're starting to get to this point of the previews. We have the actual squad selections for these teams. And this is the Tunisian squad for the World Cup. Right here. They throw it up on Wikipedia right when it's done. You can double check it. This is the team. Now, there are some big Tunisian footballing names missing from this list. And some really surprise inclusions like Ryan Alumi. This guy barely plays in MLS, right? But some sort of guy that they're kind of believing in. And he was, at one point part of the Canadian national team picture. So clearly Canada and Tunisia both believe that this guy has a lot of potential. And Tunisia is like trying to lock him down. But let's look at the recent call-ups. It's a section on Wikipedia. It shows guys that recently played. Yassine Maraya. This is a guy that's been part of a defense for Tunisia. He plays for ES Tunis. Which is like the biggest club in Tunisia. No offense to the other Tunisian clubs, right? His last appearance was at AFCON. Manager gets fired. Yassine Maraya is left out in the wind. Ali Maloul. If you watch these teams, like you're familiar with these guys. Ali Maloul would have expected to go like to this World Cup. Like if you watched the Tunisian national team, you probably heard these names. Ferjani Sassi. This dude was captaining the national team at AFCON. He's no longer on the team. Mohamed Ali bin Ramdan, right? This guy has been left off after playing basically his entire, high-level professional career. He's been in the Tunisian national team. He's only 26. He's got nearly 60 caps, right? And he has been left off. Aissa Laidouni, right? This guy's only 29. He's got 59 caps. His last appearance was actually before AFCON. So you can see maybe the previous manager acknowledging that a change was probably needed, that a new generation of players coming in was going to be important. And Naim Sliti, a guy that had been, playing as a part of this front line for, I remember that guy, right? They're all, like, AFCON was the final hurdle for them. And now all of a sudden, they're gone. They're all gone, right? Look at the cap numbers. Very few of the guys in this national team have the cap numbers those guys have. Like that generation of 2 World Cups and everything else Tunisia was able to do in the qualifying and AFCON and whatever, we're into a little bit more of an unknown. We're into a little bit more of a new generation. And while that obviously raises the ceiling of this team, because this manager who's come in to rock the boat has rocked the boat and could end up making the boat go faster, could also sink the damn thing, right? Because Tunisia's identity was never high-flying, crazy dribbling, whatever. This team is disciplined. This team is organized. The national team is steady, right? There's, in international sports, the steadier your team is, the more consistent they're going to be. And this is a steady fucking team. Same dudes every time, holding the whole spine of the team together. And now they're not there. I'm kind of scared for them in that sense because I always loved that Tunisia was so reliable in exactly how they were going to do it, right? They're just going to squeeze the fucking life out of you. But now we're not necessarily getting that. Now we're getting new Tunisia where guys like Hannibal Mejbri, who's the 23-year-old kind of, with a team like Tunisia, somebody that's playing in the Premier League, even if they're playing for Burnley. Mejbri's one of those guys, if you look at like the Curacao team or whatever, one of those guys that's been trained in big-time academies, right? Even though he's not necessarily at the highest level he's been at in his career. Right? This guy started at Manchester United, right? He's played for Sevilla. He's now played for Burnley, in a Premier League season, right? He's got a level to him, a consistent level of physicality and technicality that a lot of players that are even going to be at the World Cup are not going to have because they don't have the experience of being able to compete against that, day in and day out. Fortunately for Tunisia, they still have that in the midfield. Elias Shkuri is a legit player for Eintracht Frankfurt. He's got the captain's armband now. He's going to be the force marshaling things in the midfield. They have Ismail Garbi, only 22 years old, plays for Augsburg, good club in Germany. And then they've also got Rani Khedira, which is a bit of a weird pull if you're thinking the last name sounds familiar. Sami Khedira once won a World Cup with Germany. He was on a World Cup winning team. Rani Khedira was born in Germany, obviously Tunisian heritage, or else he wouldn't be here. And he, is now 32 years old and playing for Tunisia basically for the first time. But he's a huge pickup because look at his career. Since 2014, basically, Rani Khedira has been a Bundesliga level player, that, over a decade. And it's the same thing I'm talking about with Hannibal Mejbri. It's just that experience and that ability to execute at a high level and to know what's coming, right? That somebody like Rani Khedira is going to have. So if you slap a couple of guys together in the midfield like that, the Tunisia's midfield is going to be able to keep the ball, not give the ball away in super dangerous situations, and deny space to the opposition team. Now, how they're actually going to line up, these are the two friendlies, the only two matches we've had under this manager. And we've gotten two different formations. 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. Right? 4-2-3-1 against Canada and a 0-0 draw. And a 1-0 win against Haiti that also involved Haiti getting a late red card. In case you look it up on the box score, you get all confused why there was a red card. It was late, didn't really affect the game. Maybe this means Tunisia is going to stay who they are. Because that's two matches with one goal total for both teams. And I don't think Tunisia can stray too far away from who they are because they don't have the offensive talent to do it. I mean, they really don't. I mean, you look at the forward section of this right here. Now, Hannibal Mejbri shouldn't be in the midfield section, right? He's a guy that is going to be impacting things in the final third, right? A guy that can play in the half spaces. Everybody loves that term, but he's not an out-and-out winger or not an out-and-out striker, but he's more forward player, right? The guys that are actually down here, you just don't have somebody that's going to be able to influence the game. In a World Cup setting, I don't see him. Hannibal Mejbri is going to have to be the guy that puts a cape on a little bit, but, if you're calling up Ryan Alumi, you're calling up Khalil Ayari. I mean, maybe one of these guys could break out, but Khalil Ayari has never played for PSG. I know you see, PSG, the biggest team in France. He's never played. He's there, which, good spot to be, good training, great meals, I'm sure. But it's hard to trust and rely on somebody that's just, not playing. You get a guy playing in the Russian league, that might as well be Narnia, right? They're detached from the rest of the world at this point. You got somebody at Club African in, in Tunisia. And then you got Elias Achauri. And that's really the only guy up here that I know without having to look them up. And he's good. But there isn't a Wabi Kazri. They need Hannibal Mejbri to be a guy that can produce a moment of magic for this team. Or they need one of those guys that I've pointed out to take a step, right? Because we've seen that happen before. Let's take Khalil Ayari as an example, right? This guy's never played for PSG, but PSG clearly saw something in him, right? They brought him in from Stade Tunisien, taking a look at him or whatever. Let's say whatever little glimmer of fantastic potential that PSG saw, he shows. The touch paper just lights. He hits a 35-yard screamer. He dribbles the whole team. I don't know. One of those. That could be something that would change the projection for this Tunisian team. But as things stand right now, Tunisia is going to have to, even though it's a new guard, be able to play a lot of the same way. Gum things up, play tough, right? They can't rely on some sort of Herculean effort from their goalkeeper, although they've never actually really been able to, right? Because Tunisia's just never really had a goalkeeper that's been playing outside of the Tunisian league. And their defense of grizzled, bearded veterans has been watered down a little bit. And Montassar Talbi is going to have a lot of work to do to try and hold it together, because that's really the last guy that I recall being like a full-blown part of just the core of this Tunisian team over the last 4 to 8 years that's still there in the defense, right? Montassar Talbi. So, you can keep building around him. He's still only 27. For the first time in a while, can't really tell you what's going to happen with this team. It might definitely be exciting because you're probably sick of the whole 0-0, 1-0, survive and advance mentality. But damn if it wasn't working.